Oh my gosh, right now I am such in elated bliss. I'm like still haven't calmed down from watching finals. It's here, we have our queen. Oh my god. Hello, if you're new here, my name is Suzi Greenberg and I am a former state title holder. All right, I'm just gonna dive right in on this. Wow, it was not what I was expecting, but yet I really, really enjoyed watching this pageant. And there are definitely some things that I was very, very happy to see, and I hope that just continues forward. I hope this is like the standard. We can continue going on with this. Okay, we're starting off at the beginning of the show, opening number. As we know, Miss Universe took place in New Orleans, USA, and the opening number scene was like right there on downtown New Orleans, and then they went in and they had kind of like the parade going into the competition. It was very, very much, they brought in the culture of New Orleans and really made it very kind of this grassroots feel. I really had high hopes for New Orleans. I pretty much knew that this is kind of gonna be how it was gonna be, and I think they did a great job. I loved how much of the culture they brought into it, and it was really what I was expecting. Louisiana always puts on a great pageant, so they did not disappoint. However, I did want to mention that if we're comparing this pageant compared to past Miss Universe pageants, some people may feel like it was a little underwhelming. Like last year in Israel was phenomenal. I love the production. Even in a couple other years ago, I can't remember what year and what country it was, but there's a couple that come to mind that like I just am like, was it just really blown away by production. And I feel like that New Orleans did really good with what they were giving. I don't know the details. I'd have to do some searching, and I don't even know if it's available, but there was this leadership change, and which meant financial changes, and I feel like Louisiana potentially just could have gotten a very small budget allowed to them. Because I'm not really sure the details of if it's the host country that puts forth the money or is it the universe, like where that split is of where the funding comes from, or who's responsible for it. So I feel like New Orleans potentially could have not been giving as much funding, but for what the funding that they had, what the resources that they used was really great. Like I said this before in my prelims video, I felt like the stage was really small, so there was minimal of things that you can do from a staging perspective when you're on a stage that small compared to some of the other universe stages we've seen in the past, which where you could have all these huge set pieces and all these other. I'm going back to, I think it was Miss USA 2015. Just have to check that. It was hosted in Louisiana, and they had these like huge like set pieces come in, but like they had a much bigger stage. They're able to do all this type of stuff. So I thought that with what they had, they did a good job. So into the elimination section, this year we had a top 16, and yeah, the top 16 were not what I expected. I think a lot of people were very shocked by this top 16. I only think I got like half of my top 16. Well, actually I picked a top 20. But of that top 20, I'm pretty sure only half of mine made it, if that, maybe even less. But I definitely know that there were some definite changes I saw throughout the show, and there's definitely, very obviously, there was differences in the scoring. I feel like they put a lot more emphasis on interview and more emphasis on philanthropy and more of like the change impact. Like, we're going back to that. Like, it was less about how fierce you could walk and more about the type of leader that you were. I think that was where it was like, so this year they didn't break down and tell us exactly how it was scored, the percentages, all that. Like in past years they have. This year we didn't get that. So I don't know exactly how it's done, but if I have to just guess and assume, my guess is that that section had a bigger, and even when you go under like the categories for like under gown or under swim, like what are they judging? Is it like beauty of face or is it confidence of walk, right? Like what are the sub bullet points under each category? That's going to be really important when you're scoring. So because there was definitely a huge change in scoring, that definitely swayed my my predictions it makes sense that my predictions weren't as accurate as they usually are. But I'm okay with that, actually. I really like it when a pageant puts forth women who are good leaders and have good speaking skills. I think that is going to go a lot farther than just being really fierce and being able to do a great hair flip, right? So with that, the top 16 that were called were Puerto Rico, Haiti, Australia, Dominican Republic, Laos, South Africa, Portugal, Canada, Peru, Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao, India, Venezuela, Spain, USA, and Colombia. In their performances, a lot of them, there were no real like surprises from prelims to finals. I didn't necessarily, you know how some girls, like, they kind of were like, okay, in, you know, prelims, and then they just come out like dark horse, they have this eureka moment, and then in finals they're amazing. Or versus like in prelims they're like so good and they burn out, and then in finals they're just flat. I didn't really see that. I saw a lot of consistency. Pretty much how I like compared my scores from finals to my scores I gave them in prelims, and they're pretty much the exact same. With this new scoring of having this heavy impact, there was a lot of girls who didn't make it, and which, although it does sometimes, I am a little curious because some of these women I know do have a lot of really good impact. So I'm not exactly sure. The scoring's I'm a little confused about, but Mexico, Philippines, Thailand, Costa Rica, Vietnam, they didn't make it. And I know a lot of people are going to be really upset about that. I thought they all did really well. I scored them really well. But for whatever reason, either maybe they just didn't have good interviews. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But moving on, to a new day. And with that, I wanted to highlight some of the women who did make it, who I was really happy to see. And first off was Puerto Rico. Yay, Puerto Rico made it. And she did fantastic, as we later will see. But just so happy, so glad that she did so well. She did wear the same dress which I liked her dress, so no complaints there. And she looked absolutely stunning, as always. Australia. I liked Australia. I've liked her from the very beginning. So I was so happy to see her called up. She was one of those girls who I wasn't really, I felt like she was going to get overlooked and wasn't going to get brought into finals, but she was, and I was very happy for her. She did not progress forward, but I did really enjoy seeing her there, and I think she did really well in her performances, so I'm really happy for her. As a side note, I wanted to mention that I really also enjoyed the fact that they had swimsuit and evening gown and then an elimination. They didn't have an elimination between the two pieces of competition, which I really like that, because I hate it when they do elimination after swimsuit, because it gives such an advantage to the girls who are naturally good at swimsuit. By doing both parts of competition and then have an elimination, I think it makes it overall fair and just evens out the playing field a little bit, because you want them to be good at both, not just a great walk in swim. But moving on to some of the amazing performances, of course, was Dominican Republic. I mean, she was so effortless and just, I really do like the fact that she changed her dress, though. I was not a fan of her prelim dress, but I liked her finals dress much more when she did her evening gown. So it was very, very happy to see that costume change. Venezuela, of course, she was on one of my top 5 list, but I just really, really loved that this round of competition, she just was so relaxed. She looked like she was having so much fun during finals, and that's what I really, really wanted for her, and she did that. She came through, and her wardrobe just looked fantastic on her. Her swimsuit looked amazing. The color just really popped on her. She did have a dress change. She went from the green dress in prelims to this other dress. I don't know. I'm not really sure about her new dress. I liked the design of her dress, but I wasn't a huge fan of the coloring of the dress. I feel like if she would have changed the colors on it, I think it would have suited her and it would have popped more on her. Like I always say, it's not the dress that wins the competition, but it does just give you a little bit more of that glamour factor. So I think she did really, really well, though. I'm so happy of how comfortable she was and how effortless it was to see her on stage. USA. Oh my God, Ravani. Yay, good job. Of course, she actually added something in swimsuit, between prelims and finals. She added this extra, I don't know what to kind of call it, a little ruffle thing kind of on the back of her cape, which is an interesting, I liked that on there. And then she did change her gown in finals to this new gown, and I liked her prelim gown, but her finals gown, oh my gosh, it was beautiful. And of course, her being a fashion designer, I'm assuming she designed it herself, but it was so beautiful. It looked amazing on her. She just did such a good choice with the design of that. Her her designs were wonderful for this competition. So that dress really took my breath away. And she looked fantastic doing it. And she just so confident, so everything, technique. It was just beautiful, beautiful. USA finally coming back, finally having a strong contestant after all these years. Just so happy with her performance. So there were some girls here who I felt like they did good, but they just didn't have the extra glam, the extra it factor, the extra thing to kind of really put them on the top. Like they were good, but they weren't absolutely great in the presence of people like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, USA. They just weren't able to be at that level of echelon. And some of those were South Africa, Portugal, Curacao, India, Colombia. Like I thought that they did really, really well, but they just weren't as good. And in this competition, it's not good enough just to be good. You have to be the best. And I know a lot of hearts are broken, but you know what? It is a competition, and you really got to bring it. You got to bring it your all. And I know that they probably had a wonderful experience, and I think a lot of them did really give it their all. And for that, I wish the best to them. So we then went into the top 5 in the next elimination. And overall, I was pretty satisfied with this elimination, which was Venezuela, USA, Puerto Rico, Curacao, and Dominican Republic. Overall, all those girls I did give pretty good scores to, so I felt like it was they were deserving of having those. I didn't feel like there was anyone like, oh my gosh, like why did they forget about them? Like these girls definitely shone, and I felt like they deserve to be in a top 5 spot. So for the top 5 question round, they did the fishbowl style questions, and they all got different questions. And overall, I thought the questions were decent this year. There was nothing really heavily politically charged. Everything was things that were very substantial, things that mattered, things that they could really dig in and really give a good meaty answer to. And we started off with Venezuela. Venezuela got asked tell about a time that you felt shame and how you turned that shame into fuel. And I thought that was an awesome question, because shame is something that is so monumental and destructive in people's life, and it is shame that a lot of times keeps people from greatness and achieving their goals and having confidence in them. So I thought this was such a relevant and great question. I think Miss Venezuela did a decent job answering this. I do understand that you are under pressure, so I'm always trying to give people a bit of grace during this. But the only thing is, she talked about a time like how she had felt shame, but she didn't really end it with like a driving message, and she could have made her argument a bit stronger, talking about, how this can help other people. USA's question was about the rule change, how now the Miss Universe organization allows mothers and married women to compete for next year's competition. And so then they added to that, what is an additional change that you would like to see? And Rabani answered that she wanted there to be an age increase, because she said that age should not define who you are. She says, I am 28, and right now I'm at pretty much the age limit of how old you can be, and I shouldn't be defined by my future or my past, and that age is something that I shouldn't stop me from achieving my dreams. And I love this question. I was like, yes, because this is exactly how I feel. I have been saying for a long time that I think they should either change the age limit, make it a more broader age range, or they should have another like Miss Universe Elite something, like the way that they have, how they have Teen Miss Elite or some other, however they want to do it. Either make another division or increase the age. And I think Rabani knocked it out of the park. I think that the audience completely went crazy during her response. and she really spoke it with such clarity and passion that it really convinced the judges. Puerto Rico's question was, how would you represent all of the delegates throughout the year? Basically an ambassadorship type question. Her answer wasn't very specific. It wasn't like she gave examples like, this is what I'm going to do through my reign, or this is what's a very specific thing that I encompass to represent everyone. So it wasn't the most strongest argument, but the delivery of her question was phenomenal. She did an excellent job delivering, and the speaking ability of it was beautiful. So while the answer was a bit fluffy, delivery was awesome. Curaçao's question was, if you were to talk to the president of your country, what would you like to discuss? And she basically said that their country is very multicultural and that we should basically embrace diversity and there shouldn't be any bullying done. I think what she said was, a good answer. However, she did seem a little nervous and a little deer in the headlights-ish. So it probably didn't come out as eloquent as she could have done on less, nervous circumstances. So she also probably didn't really give any really deep examples of how or why. So I definitely think that's one of the reasons why she didn't progress forward. Dominican Republic was asked, what is the most significant obstacle that women in your country face and what do we do about it? And she said it was access to education in her country, and that these women and children should have the chance to be able to go to school and not just be mothers and wives and just take care of children. I think her answer was very good. It was very elegant. I really liked her answer. I think she had, second to best. She had second to best answer of all the answers. The only thing I think that she could have done to make it even better is to basically say how to do that. Like, how do we go from them not having any education to having education? Adding that extra little piece of the how we get there would have made her argument even stronger. But from what the content that she did give was overall really good. Next, we had another elimination into the top 3, which were Dominican Republic, USA, and Venezuela. So for the top 3, we had all of them answer the same question, while the other 2 girls had headphones on where they couldn't hear what was the question being asked. And the question that all 3 girls were asked was, if you win Miss Universe, how would you work to demonstrate this as an empowering and progressive organization? This, of course, is a very relevant question. I do like the fact that they placed in there not just an empowering, but progressive. The fact that this is a forward-thinking organization. I really do see them really trying to be progressive and really make changes that the world cares about. So they each would have to answer this question of what they would do to help that organization achieve these goals. Dominican Republic answer was saying that she already works in helping women and in kind of women's rights and therefore, and that she works really hard every day and that she's basically an example for other people. So, not the strongest of answers, but it was done in a very professional way, and I think that it was okay. I'll give her that. USA answered this question by saying that she would become a transformational leader. She then went into basically explaining her philanthropy and how she has making change every day through these different organizations, through her business that she has of sustainable clothing, and through her charity work of empowering women who are victims of sexual abuse. And this is kind of what I mean by giving an example. She gave solid proof of things that she's already doing and plans that she already has, how to further it. So because of this, this is what made her answer probably the most substantial of all the answers. Lastly, we had Venezuela, and Venezuela said basically the main goal and point of her answer was that this organization is by women for women, and that that it's all this organization about designing dreams. And there wasn't a ton of real depth in a lot of it, but it did come off very very eloquent. Couple quick comments before we get into crowning. I wanted to say that I really liked, if you watch the English version of the pageant, they had on the sidelines, they had some of they had Catriona interviewing some of the former Miss Universes from like one was from the 70s, one was from the 80s, one was from the 90s. And I really like the fact that they brought back some of these older women and like gave them a moment. I really enjoyed that kind of legacy, and they brought these women in. I thought it was a nice touch. I enjoyed it. I was also so touched and grateful that they brought and had a moment for Chesley Chris and didn't just mention her. They had an entire moment where they played a whole video, and then on top of that they brought out Chesley's mom to speak. For anyone who is not aware of the situation, Chesley Christ was a former Miss USA who competed at Miss Universe, and about a year ago Chesley Christ committed suicide. So they had this moment to honor and remember her, and her mom came out and spoke and basically said thank you, and kind of talked about Chesley, and announced that there is a foundation now that she is paired with a suicide prevention in her name. And it was really, really touching. I was crying when I was watching it. I was very, very moved by it. Chesley was one of my favorite Miss USAs of all time, so I was really distraught when this happened, and I'm already choking up a little bit, but the fact that the organization did that, it meant a lot to me. On a bit of a happier note, let's get into crowning. So I did really like the crowning this year. I love that they brought back the drama. They had like the lights come down, and they had like the swirling cameras. It was awesome. It's the way that the pageantry should be. You got to have your like waiting in anticipation. It was good. I really enjoyed crowning this year. Yes, a whole pageant can be completely ruined by a bad crowning. If you want to hear about that, you can watch my video about Miss USA this last year and the lack of crowning. But this crowning was awesome. In second runner-up, we had Dominican Republic. So for the final two, we had Venezuela and USA holding hands, the lights going, and they announced our winner, Miss USA! Oh my gosh, Romani won! Oh my gosh, I was like, all right, when I was watching this, I'm like, okay, I'm not getting my hope. I'm really thinking that, Romani should win this, but I'm like, I'm not trying to get my hopes up. Like I'm, you know, because I've been disappointed before. And then I'm like, okay, all right. Dominican Republic, who I thought was her biggest competition, got second runner-up. So it was just her and Venezuela. I'm like, USA, we could do this. We could take this. We could win this thing. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, and then they called her name, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I am so happy. I'm so happy for Rabani. Like, that must be the most amazing feeling for Rabani. Like, winning Miss Universe in your home country. Like, that has to feel amazing. And I think she totally deserved it. It's not, I don't think it's just because we were in the home country. Like, of all the contestants, I really truly feel that she deserved it. Like, I think she's going to be a phenomenal Miss Universe. Like, and any people who had any doubt back when she was Miss USA, because some people were saying that, you know, there was some controversy surrounding her. All I can say is, look what she did. I mean, she earned that crown. She was phenomenal. I'm now kicking myself a little bit for not buying tickets and not actually going to the show. I was really, a lot of my pageant friends in the pageant community that I'm with here were all thinking about going and to the show. I'm not sure who ended up going and who didn't, but now I'm really disappointed and sad that I didn't buy tickets and go to the show live, because that would have been fantastic. The audience this year was amazing. They had a really great audience this year. And that would have been such a great... I wish I would have been able to see it. It was not even that far away from where I live. But who knows when we'll have another Miss Universe in the United States, because we do know where next year's Miss Universe is. They announced that next year it will be in El Salvador, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if we've ever had a Miss Universe in El Salvador before. And that's going to be a really interesting one. To announce it, they actually had a video of the president of their country announce it. So they're taking this as a country very seriously. So I am very excited to see what they do next year. So that about wraps things up. I hope that you can all wish our new queen, Rabani, the best of luck. And I'd love to hear all of your comments of how you thought the show was. You know, I know there's lots of different feelings, or there was a lot of feels in this show. So, what were some of the things you felt during the show you liked, you didn't like? Like, there was some changes, and I feel like there's going to be more changes. So, how do we feel about all this? Like, I think we're going in a good direction, but, you know, we'll see when we get there. And how about next year? What are we looking forward for next year? Let's talk, and, you know, I want to hear all of them and comment on below. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I can't wait for next time. See you soon. Bye.